Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us all today. My name is Wasif, and I am joining you from Toronto, Canada, and from the sales team here at vFairs. I'm really excited about the webcast today as we're going to talk about the best practices for successful virtual career fairs. We've seen a lot of career fairs being done, and now we really want to find out what's the best way to do them. Like, what's the best way that we can improve, get the best talent? And this is why we wanted to invite you all here today to find out the best weather that we're seeing that are trending nowadays, what's new, and what we've seen that has worked in the past. And for this, what we have today is we're joined by a great panel that has years of experience, that has done a large number of career fairs and these events. I'd like to warmly welcome all of our panelists today and thank you all for joining us. I'd first like to introduce Cora Buckner, Senior Manager, Strategic Alliances and Talent Acquisition at Abbott. When we have Jasmine from the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, Director of Talent Acquisition. Edis from Abbott as well, from Senior Manager, Talent Acquisition, Rapid Diagnostics. And then we also have Kyle Anderson from the Yamava Resort and Casino, Director of Casino Executive Communications. Thank you all for joining us today. Cora, let's start with you. And I'd just like everyone to know all of you a little better as we're just getting into it. And then we'll follow with Edis and the rest. So Cora, could you tell us more about what you do with Abbott and where you're based? We'd love to know more about what you do.
Sure. I'm with Abbott, as you mentioned, and I sit in our corporate headquarters right outside of Chicago. And I've been with Abbott for about 15 years. But I've always been in talent acquisition, and even before Abbott, I was in talent acquisition in executive search. So what I do is it's kind of a dual role. I run a co-op program, which is a student program primarily for STEM students throughout the U.S. And in addition to that, I also manage alliances with several diversity partnerships, including the Black Engineer of the Year Award, Women of Color in STEM Awards, Advancing Minorities' Interest in Engineering. So I kind of have wear a couple different hats here at Abbott, and I have a few other projects thrown in there as well. So lots of work with vFair. I mean, happy to be here and kind of share my experience this morning.
Yeah, and we're happy to have you on too. Thank you for joining us. Edis, we'd love to hear from you too, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about what you do at Abbott.
Sure, Wasa. Thank you for having us again. So Edis here. I'm also sitting in the same building with Cora, although we are connected from different rooms at the moment. I'm currently the senior manager for our rapid diagnostics business. What I do is, together with my team, support the rapid diagnostics business with regards to anything related to talent acquisition. So this could be attracting talent. This could be working on any employer branding related issues. But previously, I was also a part of the regional team back in EMEA region, and I was responsible for the university relations and employer branding initiatives over there. So what I'm going to be sharing today will be more around my previous role compared to my current one.
Perfect. No, thank you, Edis. Great to have you on board. Jasmine, would love to hear as well on what you do at the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians and where you're from.
Hi, coming from sunny Southern California. I'm Jasmine Takashita with San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. I oversee the talent acquisition for San Manuel Band of Mission Indians tribal government operations, as well as Yamava Resort and Casino. Been with the company for 4 years and about 20 years in recruitment, recruiting consulting, executive search, and we do all types of recruiting at Yamava and San Manuel. So we're excited to be able to talk about how virtual platforms have helped us across our recruiting efforts.
Thank you. We're happy to know more as well about how both organizations have been working too. Kyle, I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to tell us more about what you do at the Yamava Resort and Casino. No more.
Yeah, absolutely, Wasif. And thanks again for having me. Yeah, I work at Yamava Resort and Casino at San Manuel. We are located in Highland, California, about an hour east of LA. We just rebranded our property. We're now a full resort and casino, 432 rooms, 127 suites, 6,500 slots, which is the most on the West. And we're about to, around the corner, open an entertainment venue, Yamava Theater. So a lot going on. My role, I'm the Director of Casino Executive Communications here. Over the last 12 years of my career, I've mainly been in the marketing, advertising, and communications space. So with my position today, I work closely with the C-suite here and the leadership team at Yamava Resort and Casino, and is heavily involved as it relates to the marketing and advertising, as it relates to recruitment and helping in any way that I can. So excited to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. No, thank you all for sharing insights about your roles, about what you do. I think it's great. We'd love to know more and deep dive into our conversation today. I'd also like to thank all attendees for taking the time out today for joining us. We'd love to hear your feedback too. And we'll also have a Q&A session. We also have some exciting giveaways, so stay tuned till the end. So I think let's just deep dive into more to know more about how we've done these career fairs with you in the past and what we've seen to be the best practices here. And I'd just like to start with you, Cora, and then we'll move towards Edis and Jasmine and Kyle. So Cora, if you could tell us that, we do a lot of career fairs, but I just wanted to know more, what's the main goal or what's the objective, that why would you do a career fair? And what your organization is typically responsible for in your department.
Well, we always have dual goals with any career fair, and it's really, of course, branding is always a key goal in promoting our employment employment proposition as well. But in addition to that, of course, hiring is our primary goal behind a career fair. So that's first and foremost and so when we go into any career fair, we have set goals on what we want to get out of it. And that's the key. And the broader the reach, the better. The more diversity of candidates in every sense of the word we get, the better. So that's pretty much our first and foremost goal going into any event.
Absolutely. And Edis, I'd like to just bounce the question same to you as well. Could you tell us more about as well any goals or KPIs that you particularly look for?
Sure. Quite similar to Cora, of course, employer branding is one of the things that we would like to do, especially when we're talking about attracting talent to our organization externally. But we were also collaborating with vFairs on some internal events as well, like Intern Week within EMEA region, together with Latin America, Canada, and Asia Pac. What we did during the past years is also to provide a really enjoyable and attractive experience to our interns. Intern experience is one thing that we are really keen about. As much as we are keen about the candidate experience, intern experience is a huge part of what we do within talent acquisition here in Abbott. So what we decided to do is to actually move the whole event, which we were doing for years now, into a platform where we could make it more interactive, more enjoyable, and something that would actually give our interns the opportunity to connect with leaders and also interns from different geographies. So in that case, our aim was to make it more fun, I would say, and also making it a possibility, an opportunity for everyone to get to know different people, start their relationship within the organization, the internal network. So these were the main focus areas while we were organizing that intern weeks for the past 2 years.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great. And it's great. I know it's a big transition for everyone to have moved from in-person to virtual. And I'd like to ask you about that, Jasmine, too. So as you do career fair, what goals did you have in mind? Also, how did vFairs or any sort of virtual platform that you use help you to attract more talent?
So for us, of course, hiring, recruiting was top of mind. I think once we really got into the virtual world, we realized, how much more it had to offer, and it became a pipelining, talent identification as well as value-added service, and being able to mimic, a real life experience of Yamava and San Manuel in the virtual environment really gives the community a good glimpse of who we are, our culture, what what's important to us. And there's this connection that can resonate between, the candidates and us, the company, on this virtual platform. And, it brings them in and lets them see our value. And I think it provides a great, opportunity for us to really share our story quickly and succinctly, and especially in the pandemic, without having to worry about health and safety concerns.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Jasmine. I think, we've clearly seen, I think in the past 2 years that health is something we can't take for granted anymore. So virtual events really do help us over there. And I think we were able to connect in that format too. And Kyle, I just want to know more about, from a branding point of view as well, or from attracting the top talent. How do you feel a virtual platform enables you to do that?
Yeah, it's helped in so many different ways. I think number one, it's about building a community. That's just a huge factor. And as Jasmine, just to kind of piggyback on what Jasmine said, as we've used the platform more, we've used it for different purposes. When we started out, and I'm sure we'll do more, it was strictly about recruitment, right? And how can we leverage the platform and use it to its basic capabilities to do interviews, right? To do it in a more convenient way. At the time we first rolled it out, it was right at the heart of the pandemic. So we wanted to be sure to reach people where they were at and provide them that convenience and be able to connect with us and leverage this tool to the best of our abilities. Now being a little bit, still having some challenges, but now it's more focused on our most recent events, and we have one coming up on thought leadership. And it's really about building that community. Yes, we'll still have events. We'll still have interviews. We'll still have career guidance and sessions. So all those components are still there. But on the panel discussions in particular, and we've also leveraged the video content, we really just want to provide value for anybody in the resort and casino space, entertainment and beyond. And to Jasmine's point, it's really for an opportunity for them to see, what's our work culture like, see that there's very passionate individuals about what they do. And even if they don't want to join, at least they're going to leave saying, that Young Resort and Casino, they're doing things right. And even though that's not the opportunity for me, now that resonates with people. And over time, you have people join your community list, join your email channels, and it really builds a community. And I always find if you put value first, good things happen from there. So what vFairs in particular allows us to do is just leverage those components and really build a community.
Absolutely. I'd like to piggyback on what you just said about building a community. I think that's really important to have, as well as having your own network. And Gora, I just wanted to ask you about that too. I saw your LinkedIn as well, and you have like a huge number of followers, like 3,000 plus followers that would read every post that you make. And I feel that typically when a recruiter or line manager directly shares that this is what I am sharing, it does have a different impact. That we do have a lot of marketing efforts, and we'll talk about those too. But could you talk more about that too? How important is a network, is having your own network or a recruiter's network to share posts and updates with your connections?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback a little bit on Jasmine's comment as well, because vFair has definitely given not just me from my LinkedIn perspective, a huge network, but also our company. Because one of the things I really love about working with you all is that at the end, we know who attended, and that becomes a pipeline, because everybody's not ready now. And we understand that everybody who comes to our events, whether it's a career fair event or a branding event, is not there necessarily just for a job. Some people are just there to learn. And it's great because we have that resource, and it is the gift that keeps on giving, because I reach back to that resource periodically. I might go back to that well 20 times just to like, this is what's going on at Abbott. This is who we are, or this is a job I have. So I think that that is the most valuable component. And it's not just the people I'm reaching out to, it's who they know. And that's the other opportunity, that's the gift that keeps on giving. So I love that component the most. That's probably the most valuable thing we get out of the tool.
Absolutely. And Edis, I'd just like to reflect the similar question, but just a different side of it. So you also have a great network with a large number of followers. Do you feel like, which platforms do you feel that candidates likely connect with you, or where would you ideally want to project any upcoming events for that you'd be doing to, or any job postings?
Yeah, depending on the target audience, I would probably be able to answer this question differently, Wasif. It's not only the audience, of course, it's also the geography, because it is obvious that we are utilizing social media as talent acquisition team members here in Abbott again. But depending on which geography and what age group or what profile you're trying to reach, it might be different. And I would say LinkedIn is the basic social media platform we actively use, and that's where you probably saw those followers. But for example, if I were in EMEA again, in that region, I know that in some countries Facebook is the most prioritized social media channel, where LinkedIn is something different, and there are even some substitutes to LinkedIn in some of the countries that I was working together with my teams. So what we do is we try to identify the target group and the right channel.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is our priority channel, I would say. Facebook would be the second. But more importantly, we're also looking into the local channels in most of the countries we're working with. If you're trying to reach out to a younger generation, we definitely need to keep up with their preferences as well. So that's what we do. In countries like Germany or Netherlands or Russia, we have totally different social media channels, which works the best when you're trying to send your message out to this audience. But again, everything comes down to, if you would like to share your corporate message, everything comes down to LinkedIn in our case. And of course, we are using our own internal platform. So we have a candidate relationship management platform that we utilize, just like Cora mentioned. We start building that network pipeline, but then if it's not the right time for these people to join, but if they still would like to keep in touch with us, we make sure we do that via our internal platforms and systems as well.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. Based on region, especially EMEA or the North America or any other regions, it does vary. Social media platforms do change, but I think the connection would just be universal all over, that we're just trying to establish those and trying to find the right platforms, the right kind of candidates as well, to see what's the best way to attract the best people.
Absolutely.
And Jasmine, just as we're heading on to that, I'd like to know more about that too. So which platforms would you find to be the best that you're using, social media platforms? Would it be LinkedIn or a company website? What have you seen so far that, gets you a better response than others?
Well, I don't think that there's necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach for us, because, for our enterprise, we do entry-level positions at a high volume, and then we have very specialized positions across so many different departments. And I think that's part of the struggle is that a lot of times candidates don't know where they fit within our enterprise. They don't know how their skills are transferable. So it is our job to then selectively use social media and craft our message appropriately to that party. So we may use LinkedIn for a specialized position and for more thought leadership and those type of things. And then we may go to Facebook and to Twitter and to Instagram for that cultural message, that high energy, being able to paint the picture of our environment and work atmosphere and what's important to that crowd.
Absolutely. And just based on crowds too, I want to jump on what Jasmine said to ask Kyle. So there are a lot of different social media platforms. And for instance, a lot of people in the younger generation would maybe be accessing Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, or, looking at other job boards or even different career fair platforms. So Kyle, I just want to ask you more about what role does social media marketing play for in your advertising for career fair, and which ones do you think has worked out best in terms of a return response?
That's a great question. And everyone said so many great things. From a macro level perspective, looking at social media, you've got to have, just in our opinion, a majority of your focus, at least from your advertising media spend, there. I think we can all, simulate real life. When you go to dinner and you go on the bus and you go out, how many people are down looking at their phones? All the time, right? But it's amazing when you look at people's media budgets, how they, for whatever reason, we know how much time and energy is spent on the phone, but they don't reflect that. And social media is, the key in that space. So social media is very important for any marketing initiative, but especially it relates to recruitment. And then as far as specific channels, I think Jasmine and the panel touched on this. It's really making sure that you are on pretty much all of them, but using them to the best of their abilities. I know you mentioned the younger demographic. So for example, TikTok. Like you should be on TikTok if you want to reach the younger generation, because that's where they are. Facebook has skewed much older over the last few years than it used to be. And I'm sure that'll change in a few years where older people will be on TikTok and there'll be some new platform. So it's important that you utilize all the platforms and understand the creative needs to be different for each platform. It's not a one size fits all, as Jasmine says, especially as it relates to, what creative are you using? And another thing too is to really help yourself out, variety of content. So for example, what we're doing here today, this is a great strategy that others can follow. This will be repurposed for your guys' efforts, right? And then Jasmine will share it on her network. I'll share it on mine, and the Abbott team, I'm sure will. So over time, those spread. So I think it's important that, you make sure you're using all the channels to the best of your ability, but also from the content creation side, use the assets you kind of already have. And how can you leverage other people to kind of help with the message, whatever you're trying to convey? So I think there's multiple components, but yeah, social media is a huge aspect for recruitment and beyond.
Absolutely. No, I think that's very valid. We do use social media, I think, for a lot of time in our day for any time that we're on, and we're constantly on the phone. So it does sometimes go underutilized, the impact that social media can have to attract people to different career fairs. And Kyle, just a follow-up question for you too. How important do you feel is networking or email campaigns? So these are just two items that I wanted to touch on separate sides, and I'll go to the others as well. But any thoughts on that you've seen to be better for emails being sent out, like email blasts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure Jasmine can actually add a little bit more color on this than I do. But yeah, we definitely utilize our current database, not only just to, I think Cora mentioned this, to utilize what you have as far as your active listeners who are in the funnel, right? To let them know of upcoming events, for them to tune in. Once again, to get people to recruit on the acquisition side, it's a process. It's not as easy sometimes as just, hey, we're here, we have a job. As we know, it's a very competitive market, especially in our industry. Hospitality is, you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistic reports, every time we're at the top as far as positions need to be filled and coming back. So we need to think differently in that aspect, but it's important that you leverage everything that you can. Email is definitely one of them. And I know you mentioned networking as well. Absolutely. You have to use your network. And I love the LinkedIn space, and we've kind of talked about this already, but it is such an organic community as far as engagement goes. More so, maybe I think probably LinkedIn and TikTok are the top two as far as people willing to like a post, willing to comment, willing to tag others. So that organic reach opportunity from networking on LinkedIn is so great. And to be able to utilize that and to use your participants any way that you can, we see great results with that.
Absolutely. No, I do agree with that. And Cora, just to ask you as well, based on what just Kyle said, how much role of social media did display impact on the job that you would want to let people know of, or for your network? Would it be more that you have any Facebook jobs or Instagram or TikTok, or would it be a company website? What do you think works better based on your industry? Because I know for healthcare, these are different. So I'm just trying to let everyone know what the differences would be.
Yeah, our industry is totally different. I wouldn't use TikTok at all. In fact, but I do understand it. But Kyle brought up a great point that really, what it comes down to is the content. First, you want to be where your audience is. Yeah. And for a lot of Gen Z, they're not on LinkedIn. So one of the things we do is we host opportunities to get those interns and co-ops that work for us, and even early career talent and leaders on LinkedIn. Because to me, LinkedIn is still who you are at work. I know, especially in an industry like ours, no matter what your level is, but you really do have to go, and Kyle probably could speak to this better than I can as a marketer, where your audience is. But most importantly, content is king. If you have the right content, and often, especially if you're targeting Gen Z and millennials, you have to be out there consistently. And shame on me, I probably am not out there in 2020 as much as I have been in 2021 and previous years. But you almost need to post something every week to keep your audience engaged. And a lot of times too, I'm finding, especially when you get to that mid-career individual, they're not liking anything anymore. They're just viewing.
Yeah.
And so you never really know about the level of engagement, and it's hard to measure engagement, but they're seeing it. And sometimes I find myself doing that as well, because you may not want to admit that when you're on a call like this, you're also multitasking and looking at things and liking things during your boss's meeting. So that's maybe one of the reasons why they're not always liking, but really it's the content first and foremost, that it must resonate with the audience.
Absolutely. No, I think that that's totally right. Based on, different formats, and we were all on our phones too. So we do check that as well, but sometimes it just misses it, and you do need to keep posting, I think, to stay relevant. That's one tip that definitely for the audience out there, that keep posting, keep the right content in, and it attracts best people and at the right time as well, where you have enough time to prepare for your campaign. Just a different just a different direction. I'd like to take to offline as well. So a lot of us things have opened as well. So Cora, this one's for you as well. Have you seen offline marketing play any role in attracting like any sort of campaigns that you've seen that are beneficial, or do you what's the percentage distribution that you'd have for online or offline?
Well, we're huge on campaigns. We run campaigns all the time. Again, as I mentioned earlier, with that database component. And it's not even just, and I have the advantage of working the vFair platform, both as a customer who's purchasing and hosting an event, as well as the other side where I've attended a number of events that were hosted on the platform. So, and I've seen the campaigns come through from those events as well. But again, it has to, that consistency, especially at the closer you get to the event, you don't want to, it's a fine balance between over communicating and not communicating enough, but it's probably safer as you get closer to your event to over campaign. Yeah. Because people will register, and one of the things we found that when we have an event, the registration, we've seen it fall off as much as 50% when we initially log on, but then as the event progresses and we're campaigning during the event, we see a huge uptick. So I think campaigning is key, and I don't know if you could really over campaign as you get closer to your event, whether you use the vFair tools or your own tools.
Absolutely. I think just based on that, Edis, I'd like to take a different direction, just as we're talking on this topic for doing career fairs. But let's do that actually going inside the career fair. So once you do have that career fair, what are the key benefits of virtual career fairs or the ROI that your organization has gained from that point?
Again, I could actually provide two different perspectives on that one. If it's an external event, obviously the ultimate ROI is to make sure that we are reaching out our target audience and being able to offer what we have in hand as possible job opportunities, or at least an opportunity for a pipeline for future, which means we make the first connection during that virtual event and make this a continuous relationship going forward. So the vFairs platform and that external event is kind of playing a crucial role, I believe, for building that relationship, making the first step ahead, and the rest would be on our talent acquisition team members. So what we are measuring at the end of each of the events is the number of registration is one thing, but one of the other things that we are really valuing is, okay, how many people registered and then were actively on the platform during the time of the event, and how many of them were actually able to have a live chat with our talent acquisition team members, how many of them were interested in the documents regarding our business lines and were able to view them, or at the end apply for a job or become a part of our talent community, the way we call our ongoing relationship. If it's an internal one, of course, the ROI is quite different. It's not trying to increase the number of participants in the event, because we already know how many interns we have, for example, for an intern week. But the ultimate goal in that case would be to ensure that we keep that audience engaged throughout the event. So they shouldn't be only registering and logging on and just logging back off. It should be keeping them engaged, make sure that they have something interesting they find on the agenda each day, because intern weeks are for 3 days, 4 days, sometimes even for 5 days. They have a really full agenda, but the good part of that agenda is we also give them the flexibility to choose between different agenda items and build their own agenda for that whole week. But the ultimate ROI is absolutely the survey results we receive, the feedback we receive from our interns, asking them if they enjoyed the event, if they found it purposeful and helpful for their career going forward. And also the interactivity piece is really important. And in order to keep them active and interactive throughout the whole event, we use the gamification model. And at the end of it, we try to see, okay, with the help of this gamification, let's see how many of our interns were really active throughout the year, throughout the week, and what they have done, what were the areas they visited the most, which gives us a kind of a hint about our future events going forward, so that we understand what they enjoy, we understand what may not be that interesting for them. So this is a great input for us for the next intern week, because we organize these intern weeks twice a year. Every intern week is working as a great resource for us to understand the preferences of our target audience, which is our interns in that case.
I completely agree with that. It does have different variations to it too, based on external or internal events as well. And Jasmine and Kyle, I'd like to ask both of you as well, based on once you do a virtual career fair, once we're actually inside of it, what kind of major benefits are you looking to gain that enable you to do more of these? What works best for you?
I'll go ahead and kick that off then. I think, obviously for us, it started off as hiring, being able to get information out about the open positions that we have, and then be able to in one place, quickly host one-on-one virtual interviews and make job offers. But the biggest benefit that I think that we've seen, and we didn't expect to necessarily see, was that, we have this great opportunity to really highlight our culture, highlight who we are. We have a wonderful tribe that supports us, and makes great contributions, and we're able to tell that story, and it's all in one place. So, even though we have a direct benefit of hiring and being able to acquire great talent, there is so much more on the back end that we're able to highlight and showcase because of the virtual platform.
Yeah. And just to add to that hiring piece, it's not just hiring, it's the quality of hire. I think one of the huge advantages of working with a platform, we can have a much broader reach than we could ever. It was almost impossible for us to hit 200 schools in one day. It's not almost, it is impossible with the team we have in place. But with a virtual platform, we could cover 200 schools in one day. We could get the best of the best. We could also reach out to diverse organizations. So we're not only are we covering our traditional student talent or student population, whether it's early career students looking for full-time jobs or internships, co-ops, we're also targeting diverse organizations all in one easy one-day event. So that's huge. So that improves the quality of hire, that improves our diversity outcomes. So it's multifaceted. But Jasmine said it best too. We also get to tell the story. One of the most attended sessions we ever have every year is always from our students who have been through our programs. It's the day in the life story. And that's what most people want to hear. And that's the number one question as a recruiter, I think we probably all get from any candidate we're interviewing. What is it like to work at Abbott? And we can tell them. And I think that's the huge advantage. And we don't just tell them once, we tell them from different perspectives, from the student perspective, from the senior leadership perspective. I think that's the huge advantage. And again, it would be almost impossible to do that if we did it one-on-one with every individual within that audience.
Yeah, I kind of want to jump in there too. I think what Cora just said is perfect. Is the quality of candidate. That's what we have found over time, that, yes, we do get good numbers as far as how many people we interview, and also, on the talent acquisition side, but something that it's hard to measure. And we've heard these stories, Jasmine, I'm sure you have too, where someone later tells us, I was actually on I was listening to one of the panel sessions, or I saw a video you guys did, and it's just a very engaged group. Or, I think our finance person had a senior leader join who saw something that she said on one of the vFairs, and it was the same thing. So the numbers sometimes, if you get really focused in on that, might be misleading, but the quality of candidates, and we say this during to the participants during the vFairs events, is if you're here, that shows initiative, right? If you're taking the time out of your day to attend this event, to interact with, the different leaders, that shows initiative. So The quality of candidate, I think, is a huge component. And then also, Wasif, just to finish the point that you were asking Jasmine, something that's really nice about the platform too is, the more you use the tool, the better you get. You get the kind of insight of, okay, they're clicking here, they're spending time here, versus, okay, maybe this kind of agenda doesn't work on this one. Maybe we need to expand our content library, So I think one thing that we've learned is it's evolving. I mean, just right now, I'm learning being on this session and picking up things that we can do for next time. But I think it always evolves. And, one thing that's nice about vFairs platform and just virtual events in general is it gives you those kind of insights to tweak and adjust as you go forward to customize that experience.
Yeah, and I think that as you have like a more visual experience to showcase culture, diversity, or what your brand values are, I think it just helps you to show that, as well as having job postings or networking or sessions. But it just gives a clear visual of who you are, and you can like project that to your audience too. Just based on the audience as well, I did want to ask a question for the candidates too, for the organizers, that as you do run these career fairs, Cora, any suggestions that you have on how to run them while they're going on? Anything that you've seen that maybe having an agenda, or maybe having instructions, a tutorial, or a rehearsal day, any sort of things that you've seen have worked best that you'd like to recommend to the audience?
Okay. All of the above. Definitely that dry run rehearsal day is key. And more importantly than just running the rehearsal day, be prepared for what's going to go wrong. Whether it happens or not, have your contingency plan in place for that rehearsal, because somebody's going to not show up or having a conflict. It's just bound to happen. The second component that's also key is the account manager from vFair. I mean, we meet with that account manager and do prep usually about 4 to 6 times beforehand. We start weekly meetings. We always plan 6 weeks out. And that's based on your guidance. And we appreciate that, because without that component, I think we would never be able to execute such a large event, because we're fortunate. We were an early adopter. We started using vFair well before the pandemic. We didn't just start with the pandemic. So because we started early on, we've seen our events go from just a basic career fair to pretty much a full-scale multiple-day conference that's global. And that originally was just a one-day career fair in the US. So again, it also, you make sure you have the internal support, because it does take a village. I mean, we usually have an internal support team at us jumping here of about 20 people. And that's just organizing, not to mention the speakers and the screeners and working the booths. So make sure you have those folks in place too. And it's like any other career fair. The last thing you want is an empty booth or a speaker not present or on time. So that's the key. Just be prepared. And also set expectations with the students. Have a contingency plan to follow up with the students post-event, because it's like any other career fair. You're not going to get to everybody. I mean, we're a well-known company, which is wonderful, but that's a double-edged sword. We always have lines, sometimes 45 minutes long at a career fair that's live, which is a good problem to have, I know, but we have a contingency plan to follow up. And it's the same with a virtual platform.
Thank you, Cora. I think that's really helpful for all of us. Edis, would you care to weigh in on that? Just wanted to know any best practices that you would like to recommend while running a career fair, or any features that you've used for ours too that you feel would be recommended to use.
Well, I would definitely just echo on everything Cora just said. And about the rehearsal, it's not only for your team members who are organizing the event, the speakers is a critical part. I mean, at least in my case, that was a situation. I know that throughout this 2.5 years, everyone got used to virtual environments, but it all depends which platforms they have been using. So when you tell them and when you invite them to an event like this, they might still not be really familiar with the platform you're using. So the speakers also need to feel comfortable. They also need to be really ready for what may come their way. It is always easier when you train them and kind of get them prepared before the event, so that they feel confident that they know everything about the platform. Even if something goes wrong technically, we always rely on vFairs team. But when you have speakers and also people from your team who knows how to deal with these kind of small hiccups, I would call them, it is always easier and you don't get stressed. For events like Intern Week or Global Days of Hiring, where you have not only one day, but also a multiple days of events, it is also to have really helpful to have these wrap-up meetings at the end of each day. That was what we were doing, trying to understand what went well during that day and what we could do better for the next day, because you always have that flexibility. Again, thanks to vFairs, we were just in touch with our account manager, telling them what was really well, but what we thought could work better for the next couple of days. And we were able to modify some of the things that are not maybe visible in the front end, but at the back end, which was really helpful for the team going forward.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and just one other thing to add to that. Also, we do a debrief after the event with our vFair rep, and we do come back with notes, and our team as well. Sometimes we do debriefs, and it's a year later before we do our next event. We put those notes away, and we never look at them again. Keep those notes, put them on your calendar for the next years so you won't forget about them, and you're not reinventing the wheel every time. And you can see where the landmines, sometimes staff transitions into new jobs and they're not there. Make sure you transition those notes to the person that's taking over if you do hand off this project to another individual as well.
Perfect. That actually took my next point. But I did want to talk about that with you, Jasmine, as well, for best practice while you're at a career fair. Anything that you've seen has worked well, and even after the event, just like Cora mentioned, having lessons or document or something that you feel and God feel has benefited.
Yeah, I think from a candidate's perspective, it's really hard to prepare a candidate for the unknown, right? They're not familiar with what's going on with the platform. If they've never been to a virtual event before, it's hard to paint that picture. So I think my advice would be to the organizers of the event to say, be prepared for your visitors to be unprepared. And I think one way that we have been able to help with that is on our virtual careers, we'll have a career counseling booth. So we know that a lot of people that come into the platform, they don't know what job they want, where their relevant skills could fall within an enterprise. So we want to take the opportunity, since they don't know, to help them. So if we can capture them at that moment and really help to coach them, then they can utilize the job fair or the virtual event to the best experience for them. But I think, us knowing that they're not going to know, they're not going to come prepared, is something that we can then prepare for and set them up for success so that their experience is best for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and Kyle, I'd want to definitely want to know your thoughts on how you'd see that, okay, this was better, but this could have been improved, or any sort of strategy that you think would be better from branding point of view or video content, to just share something with candidates. What would be the best sort of practices that you would see, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think what everyone said was important, which is on the back end, and everyone involved with the event really kind of be prepared, right? Because a lot of things that are going to happen, but more specifically, when you look at kind of, I think Jasmine hit it perfectly, which is prepare them the best you can, which communication as far as what to expect. So if you're promoting the event, whether you're doing an email campaign or social, whatever the communication tactic is, I think it's important that you hit those value propositions of a virtual event, right? That it's complimentary, it's free. You could do it from home. You get to interact like legitimately with some team members. You can ask questions that maybe you might be hesitant to. Show video clips of past events. Show who the panelists are, include who they are, who they work for, what their position is, to the best of your ability, really sell those value propositions, and that's going to entice people to join your events. And, something that was said earlier, and I think this is important, I think she's actually on the call, is you need to have champions to really help these kind of events. Recruitment in general is such a holistic thing you need to do. It's not just the virtual events. For example, here at Yamava and San Manuel, we have a recruitment center, Ontario Mills Mall. We have San Manuel Careers website, which is an expansive website with a lot of different content. We have our communications team constantly pumping things out there, being involved in the community. So we're moving in so many different directions. And if you want this event to go off, you need to have some champions. For example, we have Marisol on our team and Tammy and others who who really help make this event what it is. So you need to have some key stakeholders to own the event. And that would be a big tip that I think a lot of these panelists hit on.
Definitely. Yeah, I think having ownership and owning the whole journey and then leading it forward and getting that result at the end of it would be a great objective for all of us. Kyle, I did have one question. I think that while we were talking about marketing and just projecting the values or letting people know about or candidates know about the event, I did want to ask more about Google Ads and SEO and that kind of having that careers page. Any suggestions on that or anything that you've seen has worked well for you? I'd just like to know more about that from your side.
Yeah, absolutely. So no matter if your resources are internal or you use some kind of ad agency, it's important that you think about the customer journey the whole way through. And obviously, to your point, paid search and SEO, really make sure that you're hitting those. I mean, that's something that we've evolved over time. So often we're focused on, making sure our message is out there, but I think, Google is the heart of every decision. It's where we go, jobs in my area, career opportunities, all these things. You have to think through the lens of how candidates are searching. And SEO, paid search, that is such a fundamental component. But sometimes, that kind of gets missed. So I'm glad you brought that up. So it's important to make sure. And if you want to do a test, just do it yourself. Just go through Google and search key items and key things. And you might discover like, hey, we're not top of the funnel here. We're on the second page. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So whether you're using resources internally to make sure that you're practicing the best SEO, or you're outsourcing that to some kind of agency, that's a huge bucket that you need to cover as it relates to not just a virtual event, but all your recruitment efforts.
Sure. And I just to follow up on that, Kyle, what's the best result for candidate outreach? So this is just a question that's come up, and now we're going to transition to the Q&A here as well. So everyone feel free to answer and ask questions in the Q&A box or in the chat box too. So just wanted to ask about so we got this question, what's the best result for candidate outreach? Is that LinkedIn, Facebook, or any other platform that you're seeing based on campaigns?
Yeah, I'll go first. It depends. It really depends. I think Jasmine actually already mentioned this. If you want to just reach the masses and it's, frontline and beyond, Facebook is always huge. You'll see the most bang for your buck. I mean, as far as comments, likes, engagement, but just generally speaking, if you want more specialized positions as it relates to maybe supervisors, managers, and above, we have found great success on LinkedIn. Once again, that organic reach on LinkedIn is just huge. You can get so much bandwidth on reach and engagement and not put necessarily the same amount of dollars you would Facebook. Yeah. But Facebook just reaches the masses in a way that still to this day that in my opinion, no other, social platform is. So I think it depends on the audience and your objective, but all of them are powerful. Once again, I know the folks at Abbott aren't using TikTok, but TikTok it's the home for young people, but it's skewing older by the day. There's a lot of people on there who you might think that are not, who are making fun of it and saying, people are just on there dancing. There's a lot more going on there. And, as Cor mentioned earlier, content is king. And I was thinking about this today before, I came in is, we're about to celebrate another anniversary here. It'll be our 36th year. And usually when you celebrate an anniversary, you like to show video footage and photos of, day one employees and things of that nature, because stories is really what makes your organization unique. And that's really going to help with recruitment. So now going forward, I really think the companies that are going to win, who leverage content, video, photos, really tap into their team members, their experience, their journeys going forward. If you're capturing that content, the long-term effect of that, you're going to win. So, those are just the two comments I would say to that question.
Thank you, Kyle, for your insight. We do have another question that's come up from Twitter. And anyone, if they would like to answer, are welcome. So what % of your recruiting efforts does virtual events represent? So based on your campaigns, what would be virtual events a part of? Edis, would you give?
That's a hard question to answer right now because pretty much all of our events have went virtual, whether we're hosting them or another party's hosting the events. I don't think I've had a live event in a couple years now. Edis, you can jump in here too as well. I mean, I think pretty much everything has gone virtual. Whether I'm working with a university, they host a virtual career fair. I think a few are just beginning to come back this spring semester. And even beyond, all the organizations we work with, they've all had virtual events the last 2 years. So the numbers are skewed, and it's hard to say what's going to come back live and what will not. I think from a university perspective, they will go back live to some extent or do a hybrid model. From an organizational perspective, I think hybrids are here to stay, but I don't think we're ever going to go back to the days where we're just, as recruiters, we're flying from city to city, going to event after event in a traditional sense.
Totally agree. Same experience from EMEA and even other out of US regions for the past couple of years. I think also all our universities that we're cooperating with or all the networks that we are a part of, they just also found it more efficient to go through these events as a virtual event instead of having live events, because that gives you the flexibility of agenda management and maybe having different speakers from different organizations, just like today, right? So we are able to come together, learn from each other, and share our experience as 2, 3, even sometimes 4 or 5 different companies within an hour, and we're able to receive questions. So totally the same experience. I would agree. It's not easy to give a percentage, really. I would say it's now a natural part of our lives.
Yeah. I think it's just the way the world has changed. We are primarily virtual now, but going in person. So maybe hybrid is the buzzword that I've been hearing all the time. But the next would be, I think, the next question. Kyle or Jasmine, feel free to jump in for this one. This is more about the timing of the event. So this question by Steven. When do you recommend a good month or a good time to host your career fair? They're looking towards the summer, but they want to know your opinion on what would be a good time based on your experience.
I can start that off. I think, unfortunately, the answer is it depends. It depends on what type of position you're recruiting. It depends on the demographics. It depends on your company. The best thing to focus on maybe wouldn't be the timing. I mean, it's not great to do these things around holidays and to compete with those type of things. But I think if you really take a step back and look at your target audience, what they need, where they play, where they surf on the internet, all of those things, then if you're targeting them properly, can overcome any type of timing challenges, with the exception of, if everybody's out on holiday.
Yeah, 100% agree. Obviously, you want to avoid the major holidays or major life occasions that we all kind of celebrate, or for the most part. The other part of that too, I think, is it depends on your industry. So if your industry has a really heavy attended conference that same weekend, you probably want to avoid that, especially if this is your first event, because a lot of times you'll want to tap into those resources or those people who attend that event and give yourself the best opportunity. So I think it's a combination of those two things. It's, yes, make sure you avoid the major holidays or the major events of the seasonality, but then also look within your industry and just make sure there's no conflicting events. But I think most importantly, if you do those two items, just proceed and go forward. Something we say a lot around here is complexity is the enemy of progress. You can find all the reasons not to do it but if you account for those kind of two things and just really try your best to plan a good event, I think you'll be heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Just do it. So the next, the final question for the day, and then we'll go towards giveaways. I'm Cora, with that would be for you. This is just the last one. And then we'll go towards Q&A. So the question is, how many resources do you allocate to launch career fairs? And how long does it take to advertise a career fair effectively? So that's a 2-point question.
Fair. Let's just say you're doing an average 1-day career fair.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you would need at least 10 people just to kind of go out and recruit people to work that career fair. So I hate to keep going with it depends, but it really does depend on what your reach is. How many functional areas you're covering, how many regions you're covering, how many jobs you have to fill or not have to fill, if you're pipelining. So it really depends, but I would try to start out with a team of no less than 5 individuals, a diverse team, somebody who understands the technology, somebody who's good at project management, somebody who is just a solid, excellent sourcing recruiter, and maybe somebody who's very good at marketing. Those are kind of the key components you're always going to need. And then from that, it can morph or it can kind of retract. It depends on what you're focused on.
Thank you, Cora. Thank you so much for your insight too. We'd then now like to move towards the giveaways, towards the completion of the webinar. And I'd just like to announce the names of our 2 winners. So drum roll virtually. But yeah, the first, and these are going to be randomly assigned. The first winner of the gift card giveaway is Bernadette Demakulingen. Congratulations, Bernadette. Thank you for attending the webinar. This is a $50 Amazon gift card. And the next one, and the second winner is John Operin. Congratulations, John. Thank you for giving the time now to us today. We'll be emailing you your gift cards shortly. And congratulations to both of our winners. Cora, Kyle, Jasmine, and Edis, thank you so much for joining today. We are really thankful that you could give us the time today, and to the audience to let them know about best practices for career fairs. If you'd like to know more to the audience, more about how we can conduct successful job fairs, please email us at sales.vfairs.com. We'd be happy to assist you and get in touch. As a reminder, this session is recorded, so we'll be sharing the on-demand video recording to all of us and to our great panelists as well. Thank you to our special guest today and everyone who joined us. This is Wasif from vFairs.
Thank you, Wasif.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Have a good day. Bye.